Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Odd Tandem. Today we have another great guest, fresh off 7th place in the Elite Mountain Bike Olympic event, and followed it up a few weeks later by winning the U23 World Championship short course in Andorra. Jens, our guest today, what did you think about that?
It was absolutely fantastic to talk to him and to hear his point of view on racing, on how he did the first race with the elite, racing with Tom Pidcock at the Olympics, the takeaways he took from there, what he learned from there. Absolutely fascinating, and I believe we just experiencing a star in the making.
Absolutely. And, I don't want to go any further without wishing you a very happy birthday. You turned 53 years old yesterday. You're 2 months ahead of me. We're getting older. So happy birthday, sir. Another thing I wanted to say to our viewers and listeners, I've been on a road trip, to say the least, the last week and a half, and I've met a lot of you out there on the road. And I just want to tell our viewers and listeners right now, Odd Tandem is the name of our new podcast. We used to have an old one. You're obviously listening to this one, but if you have a friend, make sure that you tell them about the new name of the Odd Tandem. So sit back and relax and listen to our great and incredible conversation with Riley Amos. All right, welcome Riley Amos to the Odd Tandem.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys having me on. I'm stoked to meet you all and tell you a little bit about the mountain bike side, I guess.
So I recently saw you up in Aspen at the USA Cycling Foundation fundraising event with Mari Holden. But where are you now? Are you back in Durango?
Yeah, back home in Durango, Colorado. So kind of across the state from where we were in Aspen, but yeah.
Hey, I'm Riley. We try to ease into it, so we got a few quick-fire questions for you. So you answer basically just yes or no. Alrighty, you ready for that? It's easy. Don't be nervous. It's all easy stuff. Let's start. Burger or pasta for you?
Pasta.
MTB forever or later maybe road cycling?
MTB forever.
Cool. Country music or rock and roll?
Country.
Short course or Olympic lengths MTB racing?
Both. I can't pick that.
Alrighty, that's fair enough. It's your answer. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, that's an easy intro into the beginning of our conversation. You've kind of had a busy last couple months. You know, you were 7th in the Olympics in the elite category, best ever result for an American male. And then a few weeks later, you won the Under-23 World Championship short course. Tell us a little bit about how this whole last couple of months have come together for you in these big events. I mean, you've been really successful all year, but those are pretty big milestones.
Yeah, I mean, the last couple of months has just been really crazy. Like, the whole first half of the year was just, like, really good preparation, really good racing back-to-back, nothing kind of thrown for a loop, and just amazing result after amazing result checked off. And then kind of, like, right before the games, we're in France for a World Cup in Ligier. Just come from Swiss the last World Cup and got to France feeling good, ready to go again, and I got super, super sick. Like, I was just laid up in bed. I don't even know if I really moved from bed for 3 days, like the beginning of the race week of Ligier. So that was kind of the first, like, real hiccup to the season, and it just kind of made the call with the team to go home at that point and take 2 weeks at home to recover and get ready for the Olympics. And so it's just a big kind of question mark at that point, because like everything had gone really well up to that point, but then we had been racing a bunch. And so like with the mountain bike racing, you're kind of only one race day and you're like super tapered, really fresh to have a good result. And so I like hadn't put that much training up in the last couple weeks, and then just kind of basically on my butt for a week straight. So we kind of came to the games just with a big question mark. I mean, for me, the goal for the year was always world champs first, and getting to go to the Olympics is the main goal. Like, it's it's funny how fast your perspective changes, because like in January, looking forward to the year, it's like, man, if we had a chance to get to go to the Olympics and we were able to, it'd be a huge win for the whole year. Like that's just getting to go to the Olympics was the goal, and getting to go was the reward in a way. So like I didn't really have too much in terms of like a bunch of like pressure on results, or like really trying to focus specifically on a result there at the games, like truly just on getting to go. And then in a couple of short months, the perspective changes completely, you know, and it's like, oh, we're going to the games, and we want to have a great ride. So it's funny how like you try and keep or you can reevaluate your goals a little bit in the season, but like I never really lost sight of the fact that I really wanted to have a great ride at Worlds. So I went to the games, feeling pretty good during the week. Like you said, just had an absolutely unbelievable day. Like I got to start on the front row with all these incredible elite athletes that kind of have looked up to and not really got to race for a bunch of years, and had a great start and ended up getting to mix it up at the front with all these guys. And yeah, it was just so cool, because lap after lap, it was like just riding on the wheels of like my idols in sport. Like getting a tow from Pidcock after he changed the wheel back to the front group, and like at one point had to like make the call to try and jump across from second group to the first group when like Nino was getting dropped. It was just such a crazy, surreal experience to go from, in my head, like a young developing junior under 23 mountain bike racer to going toe to toe with these elite guys, you know? So that was just absolutely unbelievable. Came home and then really committed to doing some really quality work for world champs, and kind of get that confidence back in your body, your fitness, to be able to go to worlds and deliver on the one day. Because like for world champs, it's the most important race in mountain biking for sure. Like we don't have a Tour de France and where it looks a bit differently. So everyone always goes to world champs on the best form of the year. Like that's the one day to take the biggest honors in mountain biking besides the Olympics. So did a ton of good work at home. Went to Andorra just on a course that I've ridden really, really well on from altitude. So it was just kind of a stars aligned moment for me to be able to go to this World Champs as the last year under 23 in Andorra. Got there a couple days early, was feeling really great, and then the morning of the team relay on Wednesday, I like started to feel a little tickle in my throat, and literally like got up to the venue and started doing my warm up, and it was like just started to have like these second thoughts of like, oh, it's Wednesday. I know I race Friday and Sunday. Like I really don't want to jeopardize the really important race. I think I'm getting sick. And so just like, it was super, super hard to try and like figure out what to do in that situation, because you've like worked all year and waited for this moment. And then I kind of got a little dose of life and like totally just picked up a cold week of world champs. And so I like sat out the team relay, and it was just like a super big bummer, because I've been on the U.S. team relay world champs team for the last 6 years, and like we won a couple medals but never won the jersey. And then I sat it out and they won the jersey without me, so I was like so stoked for them all. But I was like so bummed to not be a part of it, because I've never won a world champs jersey. And so I sat out the relay, still feeling super crappy the next day. Woke up feeling pretty crappy for the short track, but kind of just like made the call with the team docs and stuff that at that point, theoretically, I wasn't going to like make my sickness worse by racing, which was the main concern, because the individual cross country event's kind of the big goal for the weekend. So kind of just decided to start the short track and launching some snot rockets left and right out there. But once we got into it, I was feeling okay, and it was just an insane last 3 laps from like a Swiss guy trying to go off the front, 2 laps to go, dropping his chain, me kind of being a little farther back than I would have wanted in the group, and like having to make a little last minute like all effort to try and catch the front, and like catching the leader like on the last downhill, and then totally like made a sketchy inside pass in the second to last corner and won the short track world championship in my first ever world championship title ever. So it was just unreal roller coaster of a week, of a last month or two, and to conclude or not quite conclude yet, but to conclude thus far, like pretty insane year. And then I still kept trying to rest and woke up for the cross country a little better, but my body just kind of didn't have it for the main day. So you get highs and lows with sport, but yeah, it was crazy to close the door on like my last world championship race that's not an elite, you know, and wonder what could have been, right? But you can't win everything, so yeah, that was kind of meandering and long, but
So you already raced the Olympics with the elite category. That will be your future next year, right?
Correct.
So
yeah,
and we could see how happy you were to finish this season, your last under 23 season off with the title, right? And at the Olympics, what did you take away from there? Where do you think is a Pidcock or somebody like them better than you? They're physically stronger, they are technically better, they're more daring on the downhills, or what do you think? Where can you improve, or where do you need to improve for the coming year to actually go face to face with them?
Yeah, for sure. There was a lot of really good takeaways from that. One, first and foremost, is like, okay, in a lot of ways they are better, but in a lot of ways, like I am there and I'm ready for it. In terms of like, I mean, part of it's special with the Olympics because it's so like there's so many emotions that run so high on the day of the Olympics because it's such a big goal for so many people, and maybe some people lose their cool a little bit when it comes to the racecraft and tactics portion. Excuse me, on one day, but it was cool to feel like, okay, I'm actually racing with these guys, and like I don't want to say I know what I'm doing, but I've learned over the last couple of years the tools to be able to battle a little bit with these guys, and especially like the technical side. Like we kind of touched on it earlier. Like I didn't come from a road background. Like I grew up here in Colorado riding mountain bikes and like with a culture of mountain bikes, and my roots are in mountain biking, so I really love riding my bike on trails, on really hard stuff, hitting jumps, drops. Like I really pride myself in the bike handling more than maybe the physical portion of things. So it was really cool to feel like, okay, I can, especially on the downhills, like race with the best guys in the world and really pick and analyze great lines during the week and have like a couple cards up my sleeve a bit in terms of on the track, in terms of my skills. And I've really come a long way, I think, in the last couple of years in terms of like racecraft and tactics, but it was definitely eye-opening to feel how you race that level of a race with that many good guys, because I think in the under 23 race there's like maybe 5 guys that can win on a given day, and usually within the first lap the race breaks apart to around 5 guys, and we did the first lap of the Olympic track and it didn't feel slow, but it wasn't like absolute all out from the gun, and then we came around the second lap and it was like 15 guys swarming me for the single track. So it was like definitely a really eye-opening experience how cutthroat and aggressive racing it is, because there's just so many good guys that are gonna battle you for that position like over and over. So I took away for sure they're a lot of them are a lot stronger. Like I have years and depth of the physical portion that I need to improve. But like we're getting there, and we have the tools to hopefully be able to have success in the next couple of years. It's like the biggest takeaway for me. It was just like a big sigh of relief that a lot of under 23 guys have really, really struggled to race with the elites. And I mean, it was one race, so God knows it's going to happen next year, right? But yeah, we're hopefully on track. I don't want to be too confident because anything can happen, but if we keep doing what we're doing, hopefully it won't be the hardest jump ever. Maybe I'm getting cocky. But
so kind of a 2-part question here, real quick. Was this your first? Was the Olympic long course event your first race with the elites all year?
With like that many high level elites, because like
Okay.
in the US we kind of race some domestic races as an elite rider. I raced like the short track at the Continental Champs earlier in the year with the elite riders and won. But that was like actually putting a lot of really good elite riders in one place and then racing with them. That was the first time.
And second part, I've been to the Olympics, and normally the women have their events before the men. How motivating was it when Hallie Batten won her silver medal? Did that kind of like take a little bit of the pressure off and show like what's possible here on a special day like the Olympics?
Oh, so much. Like it just sets the tone so much. Like I actually don't get to really spend that much time around Haley and Chris and Sevilla throughout the year because we kind of ride for our different federations, or I mean, sorry, our different factory teams instead of our federation. So like staying with them all week and connecting with them, and then like you said, watching Haley just like absolutely smash it just sets the momentum so much within the team, and like everyone's morale is so high, and it totally like just getting to like learn from them, like Chris and Haley and Sevilla a bit, just like their processes and mindset and kind of what makes them some of the best riders in the world was super impactful in Paris as well. And then, like you said, like watching her smash that silver medal and just see that was huge. Yeah, just amazing.
Do you think there is some sort of information or tactics crossover between men and women in mountain biking, or is it still different type, style, or lengths of racing, and you cannot give each other much of a helping tip or anything?
No, I think sure there's some subtle differences, but I think it does have a lot of crossover and is a lot pretty similar. Like just things you saw from Haley's race in terms of where they had a couple flat tires, where the race split, like we didn't really know how the race course was going to kind of race necessarily. I mean, there was a test event, I think it was about a year before the Olympic event. They had a test race on the course, but they had changed quite a bit since then. So it definitely gives you a ton of information to watch them race, and then to also like just communicate with the women like Haley and Sevilla, and just get their tips, right? So like that was for me, a key indicator of where a couple flat tires happened, and then equipment choices based on that, how much their race actually like broke apart, but you can also ride back into it. Like a lot of subtle things of how to pace the race, where is important places to be up in the group or not stress so much. And then, like I said, like a little bit of the equipment choice was definitely super helpful from watching their race and communicating with them.
And can you just clarify for us as well as our viewers and listeners the difference between short track and long course? I originally thought that the short course was basically just like less laps than the long course, but how was it in the Olympic or in your world championships, for example, or in all the World Cup races?
Yeah, we've kind of just been bouncing kind of back and forth all over, but to clarify, like the short track and the cross country are two completely different races. Typically with the World Cup circuit, which is kind of like the pinnacle of our sport, what we race all year long across the globe. We kind of have like a short track race on Friday or Saturday. Usually it's kind of like the opening race for the weekend, almost maybe like a crit kind of thing. Super short lap, maybe 3-minute lap that we race for around 20 minutes, just super short, all out tactical racing. And then the cross country, the Olympic cross country event is kind of the main event for a weekend on a World Cup weekend. So it's a bit longer of a track, usually between like 3.5 and 5K circuit. Climbing, descending, natural, single track, man-made jumps, rock gardens, features. And laps will be anywhere from like 11 to 15 minutes usually. We race for about an hour and a half usually. So kind of completely different events. but yeah, both part of a cross-country racer's toolbox, I guess you could say, because they all contribute. But the short track events are not in the Olympics. Like, it's just the cross-country in the Olympics. But new the last couple of years, we've had short track world championships. So that's pretty cool. And I really, really have grown to love the short track discipline from kind of in the early days, it feeling like a bit of a weakness for me to now feeling like a bit of a strength is pretty cool.
And once you're ready, in the middle of explaining, please explain the team relay. How is that going to work?
Yeah, so that was just an event at World Champs. It's like a really special event every year just at World Champs. Each nation has a team comprised of one junior male and female, one under 23 male and female, and one elite male and female. And they each do one lap full gas of the cross-country course to compete for a world championship title as a country. So it's super, super unique and special. I think, do they do it in cyclocross as well? Or, because I don't do anything like that in road, but I think they might be in cross.
Not sure.
Not sure.
But yeah, it's super. It's just like a unique one-day event where it's cool to like ride as a team, because, you know, mountain biking's not like, we're a team sport in terms of the structure of teams and support for mountain bikers, but on race day it's an individual sport, you know, and like you're riding your own race for yourself, full gas every time you're on that start line. So it's a cool opportunity where you're still going full gas, right? But you're working as a team and relying on each other, and like you're only as strong as your weakest link as a nation, not an individual. So
Cool. But I'm in absolute awe of the courses that you guys race down. And, you know, the new kind of thing seems to be that rock garden. You know, I've been to Bentonville, Arkansas. I've seen the manicured trails. I've seen the way that they build them. But what sort of courses do you prefer? Or is it pretty much, you know, kind of the same template that they take around the World Cup circuit, the World Championships, and the Olympics?
I guess there's a couple bits to that. I guess I really prefer the harder, more technical tracks. Like I said, I'm a mountain biker at heart, you know, like that's what I consider my strengths is the technical aspect. And I've had a lot of success on days when the weather's insane and it makes it even harder technically wise. And like I really love the tracks that are natural and there's a lot of line choice and you really can make or lose time really easily based on like your skill and the line choice. And I really like being able to pick apart a track like from a skill and physical perspective. It's hard though because some of the new tracks and like when they build a new track, like it's different when you go to Val di Sole or you go to Nova Mesto on these tracks that have been in the World Cup circuit for 10 plus years. And like we've ridden essentially the same track for 10 years. And so all that rock and route is super exposed and super rough. And then it's different when you build a track like for Olympics when like they're literally taking a city park and building it into a mountain bike track. So there's just not like they have to build every inch of the track. There's nothing already there really to work with. So you have there's two kind of different personalities, I'd say, in some of our tracks nowadays, and kind of these heritage, classic, been on the circuit for a long time tracks that are maybe more natural, more rough, maybe not slower speed, maybe a little slower speed compared to like some of these new tracks they're building that are quote unquote more built for TV, that are more man-made features, more higher speed. But there's a lot of these new tracks, right? There might be this really tough, rough rock garden, but there ends up only being like kind of one line down it, and you kind of hang onto your bike and just bounce through at full speed. Like it's super rough and hard on the bike and the equipment and the body, but you're not necessarily like using skill or finesse to get through it. You're kind of just hanging on and praying that you make it down to the other side, if that makes sense. So like you're not necessarily making or losing much time in those ways. Whereas these tracks where you have like some really technical route sections or some off camber, or it's open and rough and you have a lot of options for line choice, like that's when kind of rider skill really can make or break a lot of time. And I love that, because it becomes a different game. It's not just a game of legs, it's a game of skill as well, you know?
So in cyclocross, start is the most important part, and then you kind of like hang in there. Would that be the same for mountain biking, that start is super, super important, and then you negotiate your racing from there on? Or is there like, okay, there's a start fast, a middle phase, and then the final? Or did you cut your race into smaller portions, or you just take it lap by lap?
Yeah, it depends a little on the track and the dynamic, but the start is extremely important in mountain biking, because like a lot of times, you know, we have an open section, a wide section off the start, but then different to cyclocross, it'll go into like a single file trail section. So like if someone in front of you is suffering and opens a gap in the single track, like you can't necessarily just go around them and chase it down super easily. So the start's extremely important. Usually within a lap, kind of the front group is separated, and the race kind of blows apart quite a bit. And so if you've had a bad start, it's just a lot more ground to make up in your race. You can still do it, and certain tracks are better or worse to be able to ride through the race. And for sure, some people focus too much on that start, maybe blow up a little physically and go backwards from there, and vice versa, I'm sure, as you see in cyclocross. But the start's extremely, extremely important. And then kind of it'll be really hard for a bit, driving some separation. And a lot of the old school mountain bike racing where it's a bit longer of a race, or maybe a bit longer climbs, it's kind of shifted, and it's been a lot of the tracks now, maybe the longest climb you see is 2.5, 3 minutes. So it's become a lot more, I would say, tactical than just all out threshold racing. So once those front groups kind of establish, it turns into a race. If you're at the front, of how little energy can you use until you want to go for it, to go attack and go for the win, or if you haven't made that front, right, you're kind of riding your own race to try and get to the front. So it really kind of just depends where you're at in the race. I'm sure with cyclocross as well, it's pretty similar. Using your strengths and your competitors' weaknesses as much as you can against them.
And are you riding to power or just sensations and staying on the wheel in front of you when you're doing these events?
Yeah, we're never really riding off of power and metrics. It's
you can't see it, right?
Yeah, there's no time to think, consider. You have to kind of be able to ride off of feel and instinct. And like I said, really, like, that's what's special about mountain bike racing, is you're not just doing tactics and watts, right? There's like an unquantifiable skill component that's a part of mountain bike racing that makes and loses races. So I think that's what's the coolest part of it, is we can't just go train every day on the road and develop this perfect engine, and you can't necessarily put a science to skills, right? And so I think it's something that's really cool about our sport, and that brings a lot of joy to me, and what makes me love it so much, for sure.
When you talk about skills, have you ever fancied doing the downhill mountain biking, or you do it every now and then to improve your skills even more? Or is it a completely different kind of cycling or mountain bike, and you go, nah, I stay away from it? Or would it help you to do a few of them?
Yeah, I mean, we have lots of downhills in our races that are really rough, really technical, that I think would surprise a lot of people, maybe how hard they really are. But the actual downhill racing is quite the different spectacle. Like, it's unbelievable the size of jumps, drops, features these guys can hit, and the speed they carry, and the bikes that they ride and set up for that it's unbelievable. And so, like, while most amateurs maybe their jaw would drop when they see some of the downhills we ride on, my jaw drops when I see what they ride on and the skill they have. So I think it'd be cool to go, like, maybe try a downhill race someday, but I don't think I'm currently qualified for that, for sure. I think those guys live and ladies live and breathe totally different level of skills, and in tracks and bikes especially, so.
That is crazy for me to hear you say that, because
Indeed.
I was never the best descender, but I definitely noticed towards the end of my career that I started to see the fear a lot more, which makes you hit the brakes and go a little bit slower. As you saw, I had a nice Pinarello bicycle, but I couldn't. That was well above my pay grade. I mean, I was on the brakes the whole time, and you guys just left me going down the hill. But going down those rock gardens, you mentioned that you just go straight down and you hold on. Like, that must mean that you don't see the same fear as people like myself. How do you develop that? Because there's consequences. Like on the road, if you slip out in a corner, you just kind of slide, and there's not that many obstacles that you have to deal with. But like if you slip out on a mountain bike course, I mean, there's a tree ready to greet you and say hello. That's a totally different next level of fear for me. But how do you young kids overcome that fear and deal with the technicality of some of those descents?
Well, first of all, I thought you were flying the other day we rode together. I thought you were a great mountain biker. And
That
second
was
of all,
Christian Vanderbilt.
You're a
That definitely
terrible
wasn't
liar,
me.
but we
No,
appreciate the effort. That was good. Bobby feels so much better now.
But honestly, to me, like the road crashes terrify me way more than mountain bike crashes. But I think it's just because, like, I don't know. I think the road hurts a lot more, to be honest. Like, you guys are going a lot faster when you hit the ground. And there's not much protecting you. I mean, there's not much protecting you on the mountain bike either. But like, for me, I think it's hard with the fear and the skills development. Like, it's not like we're just jumping into these World Cup tracks for the first time without really preparing. Like we've spent, in the same way you spend hours training physically, we spend hours training technically, and riding a ton of really challenging terrain. But I think to someone maybe that's nervous or wanting to progress, like you have to kind of build that confidence up brick by brick, in the same way you have to build in training. And so, starting simple, and then kind of working your way up slowly to harder and harder things. And for me, riding with people that are like better than me, that I struggle to be able to hold the wheel or am pushed out of my comfort zone a little bit, is what creates like that progression from the skills perspective. Like, obviously you can't just huck your meat without any without any care, right? Because like you said, it does hurt. But like building up and slowly kind of pushing yourself on more and more challenging terrain and with people that are better than you. And honestly, like learning the fundamental skills with mountain biking is super important, from cornering technique to braking technique. Like, it's super different. And so, yeah, that's a huge part of it. But I actually had my first really bad road crash, believe it or not, about 2 weeks ago. I was on my mountain bike on the road, and I was coming through town at about 28, 30 mile an hour. And in Durango, Colorado, we have a ton of deer in town. And one of them jumped from someone's yard into the side of me and took me out off my bike at like 30 mile an hour. And I just like slid across the pavement. Never even saw it coming. And it's hurt a lot more for the last 2 weeks than most of my mountain bike crashes have. So I'm more fearful of the road and deer after that, by far.
And now we talked so much about skills and the rock gardens. You also need a lot of good equipment to go through there, right? Earlier this year,
sure.
we went with a TV team from Eurosport to interview a few teams in their training camps and so on. And they came across a mountain bike team from track racing. And they had these, to me as a roadie, funny looking foam inlets inside their tires. Mm-hmm. What are they for? Why are you using them? And what are they helping for to our viewers and listeners? They have never seen them before.
Yeah, I mean, mountain bike technology in the last 5 years has come an insanely long way. So it's unbelievable how much our bikes have changed, our tracks have changed. And so you used to go from seeing people on hardtail mountain bikes that are barely more than a road bike with skinny little flat bars and 2.1 tires. So now we're on full suspension, 120 mil travel, 2.4 inch wide tires, and we have these inserts, or most people have these inserts in their tires, and it's literally essentially a piece of foam inside the tire and rim that helps protect. So we're trying to kind of run the lowest tire pressure we can safely, because it gives a lot more traction, a lot smoother ride on rough stuff. But the downside is right, if you're going too low with your tire pressure, you can actually hit the rim on rocks and stuff. And so like that insert gives you an extra layer of protection against the rim to push the tire pressure a bit, and offers a little bit of even stability to the tire to make it handle better. And in addition, one of the biggest things for me is, like, if you do end up having a flat tire, if you tear a chunk in your tire and there's a gash, I don't know if you've ever tried to ride on a mountain bike trail with a flat tire before on just the rim, but you don't go very fast, and a lot of times you end up like having to carry your bike on the track. But with these inserts, right, it creates a good enough it holds the tire to the rim, and it creates a good enough cushion that you can, like, honestly just ride ride the rim to the feed zone and not lose nearly as much time before you have to change the tire. And like it's completely changed the racing. Like, I actually had a flat second lap in Val di Sole, Italy last year, and was able to come back to the podium to third place. And like this year at Worlds, most people didn't even realize that I had a flat tire in the race, because I only lost 2 positions. So it's like pretty incredible what some of the new mountain bike technology is, and what we're pushing it. Like with our flight attendant systems on our mountain bike, we have completely, from SRAM RockShox, we have completely automatic lockouts on our suspension. So it's taking data from our power meter, from accelerometers, from motion sensors on our bike, and it's completely adjusting our suspension from open to a middle pedal firm mode to completely locked out, depending on the terrain and our power input, automatically at all times. It's unbelievable.
Jensy, his bike was in the bike room when I was putting my pedals on my bike, and I was with Christian Vaneveld, and he said, "Whoa, whose bike is this?" And he went over and touched it, like just put his hands on the handlebars, and all of a sudden this thing above the shock kind of lit up and it looked like a Tron bike. And I'm like, "Christian, don't touch that. Who knows what that is?" And then he realized, oh my gosh, that's Riley's bike. Maybe it's his Olympic bike. But like, that is just amazing technology to me, because the bike that I have at home, and well, my first bike, I did get a mountain bike like in 1987, and I'd ride it to school all the time, and just cruising around. And then I rode for Richie, Tom Ritchie, and he, for a longest time, made amazing bicycles, but he wasn't a fan of the front shock. So like, the riders on his team were, I think, at a severe disadvantage for a while there, until he finally rolled over and allowed them to use shocks. But now with front suspension, rear suspension, dropper post, I mean, as a roadie, there's way too many things to think of. And even on that Pinarello, the Pinarello that Tom Pidcock and Pauline Prevost use, I'm looking down and I'm like, wait, is this one a shifter, or is it the lockout for the suspension, or is it the dropper post? And I was getting it wrong the entire time. So I can imagine with the sort of system that you have on your bike, it's kind of just set it and forget it, right? You're not having to think of all those little micro adjustments, and that takes a big, like, neural load off of what you have to do, correct?
For sure. Like we're just trying to go as fast as we can, and like that thing's adjusting our suspension 3,000 times a race, right? So it's constantly optimizing it. It's not something that maybe you could consciously think about to that level while you're racing your bike. So like a lot of the shifting, dropper posts, that's all like kind of muscle memory over time, but those little marginal gains, with the suspension, and that's what the system's doing is more than what, like you said, the neurological load is quite a bit to push your lockout 3,000 times in a mountain bike race. So
just for our listeners and myself to better understand, to make it really easy, your bike realizes if you're in the rock garden or if you're just going across a smooth field then it locks down the suspension, because you don't need much suspension when you're on a smooth path. And it realizes when you go uphill, when you're out of the seat, your bike realizes with all information it gets, it realizes where you are on the circuit, and it adjusts the suspension to your needs. Is that what it is?
Exactly.
That is nuts.
Yeah, correct.
That is literally,
it's
that's
unbelievable.
nuts.
Yeah, and it's because, like, you know, we have all that suspension. It's really good at absorbing rocks and bumps, and especially like on the downhills. But like that, when you're on something really smooth and you're trying to accelerate like really hard or get out of the saddle, right, that suspension kind of works against you and kind of takes some of that force you're trying to put into the pedals, into the tires, and works against you. So it's constantly fighting the balance of suspension to go faster and suspension to not take energy from you, you know?
Good Lord. Are these, so what is the name of that setup that you have from SRAM? Flight control?
They call it flight attendant.
Flight attendant. Is that available
Yeah.
to everyone? Because Yenzi, I think, you know, we need to get one of those because we don't have the skills. It is available to the public, right?
It's available. Yeah.
Wow. One more question about your season. You know, I saw that there's been a bunch of events outside of North America. You know, you were in Brazil for 2, the United Kingdom, Italy, Poland, the Czech Republic, Austria, Italy, Switzerland, back to France, Switzerland, back to France. The Worlds were in Andorra. And now you have 2 more events left in the season in the USA, in Lake Placid, and in Canada. Are you like staying over in Europe when that kind of circuit is going on, or are you bebopping back and forth to Durango?
Yeah, it just kind of depends. This year it worked out really well that all the European World Cups were like pretty much blocked together. So I went over in May, raced in the Czech Republic. We had 2 weeks till the next round in Italy. So I went with some friends, teammates up to Livigno, Italy for a little altitude training camp, stayed over for 2 weeks, raced the next week in Italy in Val di Sole, raced the next week in Crans, Montana, and then we had 1 week off, and then it was a race in France. So like that Europe block was basically like that was all of them in one chunk. So yes, I stay over for all of that, but then we had a couple weeks till the game, so I went home. I mean, part of that was I got sick, but yeah, I was still kind of trying to decide if I was going to go home. Then came back from the games, and then there's just a big chunk of no racing again, so I went home again because honestly, like in Durango, I'm super privileged that we have an insane mountain bike community. Like I wouldn't be into mountain biking or have the opportunity to do this as a job without my community at home. Like we just have hundreds of miles of amazing single track right on our doorstep. We live at 2,000 meters of altitude. We have great weather most of the year, and we have just an amazing community of other pro athletes and mountain bikers and endurance athletes specifically. That kind of started with Ned Overend in 1990 when we had the first ever mountain bike world championships just up north from my doorstep, where Ned Overend won. And so since 1990, I guess, is kind of where the first seed of mountain biking history was planted here. And since then, it's just kind of unbelievable to see what happens when like a small community embraces an outdoor sport. And yeah, it's just so cool. We have so many local group rides with really good pros to push ourselves. We have a university with a varsity cycling team, so that I've made some of my best friends at and started the university before I got a job and decided to drop out. But yeah, it's just, for me, it's like this place is what's given me success and what's given me a job and opportunity to ride mountain bikes for a living. So as of right now, I don't really feel a want to go set up full time anywhere else, and like I'm not home hardly at all to begin with, so it's still my favorite place to come home to. And when it makes sense to come home between World Cups, I do, and when it just doesn't, in terms of like travel and logistics and jet lag, I stay over there, and it works great because the team's been super good of supporting us on race weeks, and then just for those couple weeks between, either they help out a good amount or just a little bit out of my pocket. But yeah, it's been pretty simple so far. We'll see the next couple of years. Like if there's a bit of change coming with the World Cups and the number and timing, etc., like if it makes sense to like get a visa and set up more permanently over there. But for now, Colorado is my favorite place in the world. So, yeah.
And do you think maybe it gives you a little bit of an advantage to have the last two World Cups on your home soil, so to speak? Less of a travel, you don't have to fly across the ocean like Europeans, you have to come over, maybe only one time zone in between. You think there might be a slight advantage for you?
Huge. Yeah, definitely a huge advantage. Just like when we go over there, I remember the first couple times I went to Europe, like I had not ever been out of the country to Europe until I was 17 years old. And so the first time I went over there and raced mountain bike World Cup and World Champs to the junior, it felt like I was traveling to another planet, like to another universe, you know, especially like some little small town kid, right? And trying to figure out the different food, trying to figure out nothing's in English, right? It's just like everything's different in culture, way of living, and I still have to figure it out when I go over there, you know, after 6 years of doing it. And so, I mean, I've been on, I think I looked the other day, it was like 36 flights this year, 10 of them over 8 hours. So like you add in the amount of time traveling and the jet lag from that, and it's a huge hit to your performance. And so being able to take a short trip, race on home soil, eat home food, culture, like all that just has a small effect on your well-being, I'd say, and performance associated with that. And so, it's huge advantage to race on home soil. And it's awesome because we've had a World Cup in North America the last couple of years, but it's been in Snowshoe, West Virginia. And it's a lot of the Euros complained because it was just like in the middle of nowhere. It was just like hours from any airport in the middle of the woods. And I loved it. I thought it was so cool out there. But the coolest thing is it's in the middle of absolute nowhere, like not really close to anything. And the amount of US fans that like came out and the different like vibe and culture and like cheering that they brought to the race is just so cool. Like a bunch of crazy Americans in American onesies and cowboy hats and super drunk on the side of the course just yelling at you is just so, it's just sick. Like it makes you stoked. And so I think Lake Placid could be even better. And it's absolute dream come true to be able to wear a leader's jersey of the World Cup overall and a World Championship jersey in the short track at home in the United States. Is like just insane. So I'm so pumped to hopefully go put on a good show for everybody.
Riley, after we saw you up in Aspen, we came to Boulder, myself and my buddy Robin, and the next day we got to hang out with his son, who is doing the Boulder Junior Cycling cyclocross practice. So there was a bunch of kids out there, you know, just learning cyclocross, practicing starts, having fun, right?
Yeah.
And I understand that you kind of came out of a young program like that called Durango Devo. Can you tell us how important that is, and you know, just what sort of impact that had on you starting mountain biking in the first place?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Boulder Junior Cycling is an amazing program, and they have a ton of amazing athletes that's come out of it, and it's just so cool because programs like that in Durango Devo, they offer just like another after school activity for kids and something to keep kids busy and get them outside. And so Durango Devo their motto is developing lifelong cyclists one ride at a time. It's not developing world-class athletes one ride at a time, you know? And so I grew up, you know, just 2 days a week in elementary school, going after school with just a group of kids and a coach, and just go riding your bike and having fun and learning just small skills along the way. And then as I got older, they kind of naturally give you the option to introduce a little competition as well, and travel to some high school league racing with NICA, some local races around here, jump in, like I said, with the university team a bit here and there. And like, it was just a really, really special thing because most kids grow up playing soccer, football, baseball, basketball, right? And having all those options, but nothing's quite like having the option to go on a mountain bike ride with your buddies. Like it was something that I loved and was good at. And then when we brought a little competition to something I loved and was good at. It was just like an awesome, it just blossomed. And like people ask me, occasionally from time to time, what would you do if you weren't a mountain biker? And I just I have no clue. When I was, my first year of university, I went to the college here, and I was like a really good junior, but that wasn't good enough in mountain biking to like give me a professional opportunity straight out of juniors. And so I was like in school and trying to train really hard, and wasn't sure really what I wanted to be in school for, because I just knew my heart and soul was in cycling and mountain biking. And I felt like I was putting like 50% of my energy into school and 50% of my energy into cycling and just doing okay. And like wasn't really sure where I wanted to be or where I wanted to go. And so the fact that mountain biking gave me this opportunity to do this as a pro is just like a dream come true. And without programs like Devo, without Boulder Junior Cycling, without introducing kids to cycling from a young age in a super natural, fun way, and let them develop the foundation and the roots for why they love cycling, but we won't grow cycling in the U.S. And so like it's super, super special. And yeah, you can look at the history of who's come out of Durango Devo and it'll blow your mind. From Sepp Kuss to Quinn Simmons to me to Chris Blevins to Howard Grotz. I mean, it goes on and on. And so like there's obviously some keys to success with the way these programs are set up, from getting kids into cycling from a young age and not putting any sort of competition or pressure behind it, and developing fun and lifelong experiences and adventure and a sense of good personality and character through programs like this, and then letting them find the competition naturally. It's like there's obviously some keys to success there of what is working for us, creating amazing cyclists. So yeah.
Riley, thanks a million for giving us all that time, and best of luck from Bobby and me for the last 2 races of the year. Hopefully you can then wear your world champion jersey and show it with the crazy Americans in onesies and cowboy hats yelling
Exactly.
your name. That would be so awesome.
Yeah.
Again, Riley, thanks a million for being our guest. It was fantastic to talk to you, and hopefully in the future we will have you back as a guest.
Yeah, it was super nice to meet you. Thanks for having me on. Thank you, Bobby. Pleasure.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the podcast. There will be loads more content popping up here, including more great interviews with top guests like Riley.
Keep dropping your questions for us in the comments, and check our description below to find us on social media and Patreon to support the channel like these great people.